after being traded to the Panthers a few weeks ago and finally playing a game in a Panthers uniform. It seems like it might only be just a half-season rental for Brad Marchand out of Boston. I said after the trade deadline, I don't see him coming back after the way this kind of happened at the end. But that's not the opinion of everybody, apparently, because, again, they had Jim McBride on the show, on the 98.5 morning show on Monday morning, talking about the Bruins. And he seems to think that there's a chance, Brad Marchand, a good chance that he will come back and be the Bruins captain this summer. Now, it's a bit of a long answer, but McBride goes over a couple different things in here. So I want to play this for you and the reasoning why Brad Marchand might be back in black and gold come July.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, but I'm also not. I would not be surprised if Brad's back in this summer.
Okay, now we're talking. So that's surprising. All right, go ahead.
The fact that Don mentioned that, during that post-trade deadline press conference, that the doors never closed, and how much Brad loved being here. The fact that they didn't name another captain. I could see a possibility where Brad comes back and is the captain. And I think, you need a player like him. Not that there's a ton of players like him, but you need somebody who's kind of an attitude setter. And I think that they're lacking that right now. It was particularly evident on the road trip. I thought that, there wasn't they lost McAvoy to injury. They traded Brad. And it's all on Pasta, who, to give him his due, David's a really stand-up guy. He talks every time he's asked, and he answers every question honestly. But he's by himself right now as a established leader in that locker room. So, how do you fix that? You go out and get another leader, and there's a leader that's well acquainted with the with the organization and the atmosphere around this team, and that's Brad Marchand. And I don't think that they were, a ton far away from where they could have, met in the middle for a contract. But the fact the way the season was going, now maybe you get a first-round draft pick and you get Brad Marchand back. And I think, most fans would like that trade right now.
So there is a chance, apparently, that Brad Marchand could come back to the Bruins and that those bridges are not completely burned. I don't know, man. It didn't feel great at the end there, right? The reason he was traded was because they couldn't come to an agreement on a contract extension when they sat down and met face to face. Remember, we talked about that. It was Marchand was looking for 3 by 7.5, which is just a little bit less than what Elias Lindholm is making as one of the worst forwards on the team, on a pretty bad team. And the Bruins said no, and I applaud them for saying no to that. Like, that's to go through age 39 and owe him $22.5 million, even with the cap going up. That's a lot of money for a team that's rebuilding to sink into a guy at his age and at this point in his career. Is he still a productive player? Yeah. I mean, he had the assist on the overtime winner for the Florida Panthers in his first game in their uniform, which was great. But it doesn't seem, I know he loves Boston and he kept the family here. He didn't want to leave. I understand all of that, but it's the same guy you're negotiating with. Like, who is to say that they're going to budge at all? And by the way, if this becomes a first round pick and Marchand plays more than half the playoff games and the Panthers advance to the conference finals, like, Marchand's going to be a big reason why. So it's not like he's going to have, a shortage of suitors. And there are plenty of other teams on the East Coast he can go to. I know Buchagras dropped Montreal, which would be fascinating. I don't know if it would come to that, but it could. It could. I'm just saying, I think it's more than a one-team market for Brad Marchand. And you've seen the absolute bottom fall out of this thing for the Bruins. Like, they are going to be picking in the top 5. They're going to continue to lose, and they're going to be picking in the top 5 of the NHL draft. This is going to be a full-on rebuild, not a retool. I don't know who needs to hear that, but it is going to be a rebuild. And where does Brad Marchand fit into that? If he comes back to the Bruins, am I going to be like pissy about it? No, I love Brad Marchand, and I think he can have a role to play, but I think we're overestimating how big of an impact he could have on a team that is completely starting over. And if you do need to bring him back just to be the captain, I think that is also kind of a damning look on the Bruins, because you have two other guys in that locker room who have been with the franchise for almost 10 years now. I mean, Pasternak's been 11 years, really, and McAvoy's been almost 10 years. And neither of those guys can be the captain. Marchand did not, mold those guys enough that they could be the captain of this team. I think that's a little alarming. That you don't have enough leadership in that room, that someone else can't be the captain, that you can't elevate McAvoy and make Pastrnak and Zadorov your alternate captains. I think that's a bad look, to be totally frank, if you're bringing Brad Marchand back just to be the captain of this team. But we've seen this before. I mean, we draw all the comparisons to like that 05, 06, 06, 07 kind of stretch there, where they traded Joe Thornton and then had the awful year in 06, 07. And in the middle there, they went out and they got Zdeno Chara. And the first season was bad, but they needed someone like that. They needed, like exactly what Jim McBride was saying, they need someone with a little bit of nasty, a little bit of oomph, who can lead that locker room. And if your answer to that is bringing in 37-year-old Brad Marchand again, it's not the same as signing like 28-year-old Zdeno Chara. It's, in fact, I would say it's a step backwards if that's the reason why you're bringing him in. If you can bring in Brad Marchand for $6 million a year for 2 years, and you say, okay, you are our captain again. We're not bringing you in just for that, but because you can still play a little bit, and we would love you as like a middle six forward on this team, then that I can probably get behind. But the idea that the Bruins are going to bring him back because they need him to be the captain, it's not a great look for the Bruins. And honestly, I don't know how great it is for Brad Marchand, because this team's going to suck. Okay. This team is going to suck probably next year as well. Even if they get Michael Misa, you'll still have plenty of Casey Middlestats and Johnny Beechers on this team for it to truly suck. You've seen exactly what this team is capable of the last 2 weeks. They can't win a hockey game to save their lives. I don't think they want to win a hockey game. I think they would rather die. I don't think they'd want to save their lives. And they will be picking in the top 5 in a draft that doesn't have the generational talent. James Higgins has all kinds of time now. They're all of a sudden they're in the James Higgins ballpark. His team's out, BU back to the Frozen Four, BC choking again. But now there's concerns over James Higgins and the kind of year that he's had after really lighting up the NCAA last year and having a great World Juniors. So there's all kinds of question marks. And I don't know that the exclamation point to answer that is going to be Brad Marchand coming back. And I think more importantly, I don't know if there's enough of a relationship there still. Like all the reports we heard, Brad Marchand was really pissed at the Bruins on the way out. And if you want to say the Bruins did Brad Marchand a bit of a solid, I would actually agree with you, right? Clearly he wanted to go to Florida, and they said, yes, we'll make that happen. They didn't have to do that. And they probably could have gotten more in return from someone else if Brad Marchand's agent hadn't told every other team in the league that he wanted to go to Florida and force the move. But I don't see it. If it happens, I'm not punching air. I'll be like, oh, that's nice. He's back as a Bruin and he can do something for them. But the way that this thing has gone down this season, and the way the players have reacted in the locker room, the way the fans have reacted to the GM, the way the captain reacted to the GM, like I don't see an avenue back for Brad Marchand. I really don't. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. About 90% of you watching are not subscribed to the channel. We are here talking Boston sports every weekday, high noon Eastern time here on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcasts. You can check out the other videos on the channel, talking Bruins, obviously the other Boston sports teams too. But let me know what you think about this Brad Marchand situation. I don't see him coming back, but I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. I'm Cam Stewart. Zach Burke keeps us on the air 5 days a week.